What up, say?
One time for the hometown, I got love for it, it's real. Yeah. 2 times for the haters, man, cause I notice how this shit feel. 3 times for my family, dog, cause this shit done paid our bills.
All right, welcome back, guys. This is Matt Cotrier, and this is the Matt Cotrier Report. Thanks for joining us again for another podcast episode. Today we have a very special guest in studio. It is Jenna Jones. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
On. Yes, absolutely. So this is going to be a lot of fun because I've been training Jenna at the gym, and we've been having lots of cool conversations, and we always just find ourselves like enthralled in conversation about something.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. And so before we get into our topic, which we'll talk about in a second, tell the audience your elevator pitch. So you got 30 seconds. Basically, I won't hold you to a strict 30 seconds, but tell us who you are and what you do. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, my name is Jenna Jones, and I was born and raised right here in San Angelo, Texas. Nice. I am a mom to 2 incredible kiddos. One is now an adult. She's 18 years old and just doing phenomenal. I have also a son. His name is Brendan. He's 9. Yeah. And the rest of my family, thankfully, is right here in Tom Green County. And so this is home. And by day, I work for the Texas Restaurant Association, getting to support our thousands upon thousands of restaurants throughout the state. I get to support our culinary students in culinary education, which is really cool, as well as some other just really neat aspects that are, I pray, making a difference in our owners operators on a daily basis. And love Jesus and life. I am at Celebration Church and have a chance to be on the worship team. And my 30 seconds is probably over now. I'm trying to think of anything else.
And that's it, guys. Thank you for joining us. That was the episode.
Have a great day.
No, yeah, that's great. That's good. Yeah. So lots of good things, lots of positive things. I love that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so our topic today is going to be, and this is not from a female perspective for me, but recently you've kind of started talking about your experience with dating, right? In San Angelo, in West Texas, as a woman who's, our age, late 30s, early 40s, that type of deal.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. It can be frustrating, right? It's a whole different world whenever you're dating at this age, isn't it?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. If you would have only told me in my 20s, like, buckle up. It's gonna be a ride. It's gonna be an adventure. I probably would have like tucked my tail and run the other direction. But all that to say, it's most definitely been an experience, to say the least, and something that I've really held to my chest for the last even few years, more specifically last 6 to 7 months. And then just really recently, just even in conversations with some other females that are in this stage of life, it began to become really apparent that I'm not alone walking through this. And there are so many other just phenomenal women who I know, who, as we have talked about and shared life together, then this conversation has just become a really important one, especially for someone like myself who has a relationship with God and seeks to honor the Lord.
That's right.
In this arena.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So that's what I was, we were talking about right before this, is that I think what's interesting about it is, because you've been kind of talking about that lately, kind of publicly, like what you're going through and just your personal experiences with it.
Yeah.
A lot of people relate to that and want to hear about it and talk about it and be involved in kind of, talking about the experience of dating and what you go through. And so I thought it was really interesting that so many people were interested in that when you started talking about it. And I told you, like, I don't think that anyone could garner as much interest, just anyone, because somebody who's, like I said, is kind of mature and who's seen some stuff and who's coming from a Christian point of view, I think that's why a lot of people respect that and they want to hear your perspective on it. So I think that's pretty cool because you're also real authentic. It's not like you're trying to be something, you know what I mean? And you're just talking about your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a take me or leave me, like love me or hate me. This is what you get. And I definitely did not, I didn't expect that at first.
Yeah.
And of course, and you know me, in my own life, the desire of my heart is to live transparently.
Yeah.
I don't have it all figured out. I am not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but there were several years ago when just their life circumstances and some things had happened. There was this point that you come to, and I think to some extent we put up walls with people.
Mm-hmm.
We put on a face with others, a mask, so to speak, so that we carefully manage what they see about our lives, what they know about who we are. And it becomes this manicured thing that we walk out, right?
That's right.
And so I guess, 9 years ago when I found myself in that place, I had a question for my own life that I had to ask, and that was, am I going to put on a face for everybody else and act like, oh no, it's okay, it's manageable, it's this, it's that, or am I going to just authentically say, this is what life looks like, and these are the areas that are a part of my journey, now a part of my story, whether I wanted them to be or not. This is where we are. And so you have a choice in that. You have a choice to live authentically in front of other people. And what I have found is that sometimes if we're just willing to speak up and to say, this is my story.
Yeah.
This is my journey. This is who God created me to be.
Yes, that's
and
right.
if I were to hold back from that, then not only am I potentially missing out on the blessing of doing life with somebody else, but by withholding my story and withholding my journey, what am I hindering growth for somebody else? And not that I'm responsible for that, but what do I share out of my life that could potentially make a difference with somebody else?
That's good. That's really good.
And so,
all right, guys. And with that, we'll be right back. Here's a word from one of our sponsors. Whether you're looking to buy or sell, Holscher Ranch Group has you covered. With a dedicated team and a passion for Texas land, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Visit HolscherRanchGroup.com or call 325-899-1403 to get started. Holscher Ranch Group, making land ownership dreams come true 1 acre at a time. Okay, welcome back. So, let's talk about this. This is good. So, when did you, before I get it, I want to talk about a story that you shared with me recently, as much as you want to talk about it. But before we do, tell us about when you started really dating kind of actively again.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So like I had shared in that Facebook post, I've made it a point to make myself bravely say yes over the last several years. If there was a young man or a man that had said like, hey, would you want to go to coffee? Would you want to go to dinner or whatever? And so I have forced myself and said, yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go do that.
Yeah.
Because there's also an element of practicing relationship that's there.
Mm-hmm.
You're practicing relationship. And then when you've been out of the dating game for a really long time, you have this thought in the back of your head of like, I'm going to suck at this.
Right? Isn't that true? Yeah.
What do I say? Like, oh my gosh, what if there's this lull in conversation?
I know, yeah. Especially if it's been like 20 years or something,
Yeah, and you're like, well, what if I start talking about the weather?
Yeah,
or something?
right. Yeah, yeah.
And so, I would say yes. During that process, though, for me, mentally and emotionally, I felt like I was on this roller coaster because I've been told by men multiple times that I'm intimidating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's something that blows my mind even to like within this moment, because I don't feel as though in my personality there's anything that's intimidating. So maybe we can unpack that box another time.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But in the last 6 to 7 months, very specifically, I guess, and right, wrong, or indifferent, everyone has, I think, a time where you come to and you're like, okay, something has to change. But the last date I had been on had been 3 years prior to that. So February 2024 was when I was like, okay, all right, Jenna, you're going to have to do something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it, I think, started where I felt kind of a pressure on my shoulders of like, okay, no one's going to write in and no one's saving the day here, you know? And then I had other friends and even family around who would say like, well, are you putting yourself out there?
Yeah.
And to which that phrase in and of itself right there, are you putting yourself out there? What does it mean to put yourself out there?
What does that mean?
And that's scary for a female.
Yeah.
But anyway, so got to February and decided, okay, I'm going to start dipping my toes into this and kind of figuring out what is this going to look like for me.
Yeah.
And so, and of course there are so many apps that are out there. And so determining which ones you're going to check out and what you're not going to.
How did you go about doing that?
So some of it's been trial and error. So we counted them on the Facebook Live that I did. Yeah. And I have tried out 9 of them thus far.
Nice. Okay.
9, yeah.
Which ones have been the best? So the only ones I've tried out this was like I was gonna say, 6,
tell
7
me which
years
ones
ago.
you've tried.
Tinder and Bumble are the only 2 I ever tried out.
Okay.
And I had luck on both of them, but also there were some weird things on both of them. And that's from a guy's perspective, though. So I don't know.
I was gonna say I'm fascinated. I want to hear this from a guy's perspective as well.
Yeah, I'll get into that for sure. So like, I'll talk about that right now. So what's interesting? So this was maybe 2 years after I got divorced.
Okay.
And I was back out dating, and I was using Tinder initially because I'd heard about it. And I was like, and at that time, it was still kind of like, it's kind of weird to do dating apps.
Yeah.
But people were doing it and it wasn't that big of a deal anymore.
Yeah.
So I tried it out and people would say, oh, it's just for hookups. Oh, it's just for hookups. And it's interesting how like you're saying, whenever we present ourselves to the public, it's a curated version of ourselves, manicured, curated.
Yeah.
And even to the extreme on dating apps, or whatever, like how you create your profile. But you'll find that people who are more authentic, and are not afraid to put real pictures of themselves are usually that way in person and don't have as many weird issues.
At least you hope so.
Yeah. So when you see somebody who looks too good to be true, it's usually the case, almost always.
It's AI.
Yeah, or that now, exactly. And so Tinder for me I wasn't using it as a hookup app, but I was using it I would call it like a fling app.
Okay.
So I was dating with the intention of possibly, I might meet somebody. It might turn into a long-term thing.
Yeah.
But for me, like I was freshly divorced, back on the scene, and I just wanted to have some fun.
Yeah.
And I liked that one, had some good luck. I actually dated a girl for a long time from Tinder. It was a great relationship. And then Bumble was interesting because that's the one where the woman has to contact you.
Yeah, you have to make the first
move. Yeah, and on that one, I found more luck. But when I would go out of town, like to Austin or Dallas or San Antonio, I would turn that one on, and the dating pool's huge there.
Yes.
And so it was easy, and it was fun. But I never really met anyone of real quality doing that. But also, I don't think I was trying to meet someone of real quality. It was just kind of having fun, that kind of deal.
Trying to figure things out as you were going along too.
Right.
Like when you come out of a relationship.
But now that I look back at it, I think if I were in the mindset to where I was like, okay, I want to take this a little more seriously, I don't think I would have used either one of those. I think I would have used something a little more geared toward that matched kind of my value system and matched people who were also serious. So is that kind of what you've done with the apps?
Yeah,
is
most
narrowed
definitely.
it down in that way? Yeah.
And in fact, so talking about trying to be serious, some of the ones that I then checked out were like eHarmony. Let's see. Then Match.com.
What about Christian Mingle?
I did Christian Mingle. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Which that lasted like maybe 30 days, and I was like, peace out.
Oh, really? What about Farmers or whatever it's called?
Oh my God.
You didn't do that one? Yeah, you did. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, we are here in West.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
But
Meet you a farmer. Yeah.
Right. Which I was saying last night, there's a show on TV. I think it's out of Australia, and it's Farmer Wants a Wife or something like that. And so I've had some friends that have been like, you should audition for like The Bachelorette. And I was like, under no circumstances.
You wouldn't? You totally should. You know what's funny about that though?
What?
So we had this idea. I don't even know if I want to let it go, but this is good. So we had this idea.
You can edit it out later.
I know I might leave it in or I might not, but this idea to do a Bachelorette San Angelo version.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So we pick you, let's say.
Oh Lord.
And we do a little miniature version of the Bachelorette, Wouldn't
right
it be
here in
good?
West Texas.
Yeah, and then we
Can I be your co-host?
Yeah,
That's
maybe
what I want to do.
Okay,
I'll
yeah.
be your yeah.
We can do that. And it would be great though, because we can go to different businesses, and they can get recognition at dates are at different businesses or different places. It'd be cool.
It's a really great idea.
If you had the right people.
That's the
behind
entrepreneur
it, I think
in
it'd
you.
be cool. Yeah.
You're like, what can we do next?
That'd be cool, right?
That actually would be.
Yeah.
I feel like that would get some interest
It
right here in
might.
West Texas.
It might. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. If I had the right partners with that knew what they were doing, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this matchmaking service, which someone else
Oh.
brought up yesterday too.
Yeah.
I had a friend that tried out a matchmaking service
Yep.
in her city, and granted, it was a much bigger city.
What did she say about that?
I didn't get to talk to her
Okay.
in depth about it, but that it was something that she had done. I told her, I was like, listen, I'm almost at a point, I actually have some friends in the Indian culture, and there's a huge matchmaking and is a part of the Indian culture. And I was like,
Indian culture? What do you mean?
Yeah, so within the Indian culture.
Oh, you mean arranged marriages?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You know those are often successful too.
Yes, they
Yeah.
are. And if you take a look
It's
at
interesting.
the success rates,
Yeah.
at the long term, the divorce rates, if you take a look at,
Yeah.
what they call bio data, and
Ooh.
they're literally taking two different people to find out, are you compatible?
Right.
And then they meet to see is there a spark here? And it's
Yeah.
kind of it's a more modern version of dating.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Before we forget about it.
Okay.
This is so good. We had this conversation the other day in the gym and it was so good.
Okay.
So, this reminded me. Okay, so I'm going to segue into this, but I'm going to start with what we were just talking about, which
Okay.
is, so oftentimes those arranged marriages, they do work out. And
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, it's because, these two different people from different families,
Yeah.
their families are arranging this marriage. So they know ahead of time, okay, we share the same value system.
Yes.
These top 5 things are most important to both of our families.
Yes.
They have the same socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
They have the same idea on whether they want kids. So all the important things are lined out.
Yes.
And so what
Yeah.
comes secondary, which we put an emphasis on,
Yes.
is that spark, we
Yes.
talked about
We
the other
talked
day.
about that. Yeah.
So I said, I was kind of talking about my experience, and I said, yeah, I want that spark. I want to have that intense love feeling. And
Yeah.
then you said, well, I think we put a little too much emphasis on that. So explain what you
Yes.
said about that. That
Yeah.
was really good.
Yeah,
if
so
you remember.
we live in a society anymore that's almost all that you hear about, especially with a lot of younger people.
Yeah.
Is there's this huge emphasis put on having a spark. So if you go on a very first date
Mhm.
and you don't feel that instant that rush, that love, that connection, that kind of almost like that love bombing
Yeah.
kind of a place, two people walk away and think, oh, well, I didn't feel that. I didn't have those fireworks. So, man, there must be something we must not be,
Yeah.
this must not be a thing.
Yeah.
And so then two people walk away from that experience. And I think I see more potential relationships, fail, for lack of a better word, at the first date.
Yep.
Because we're so looking for those fireworks and this passion and
Yep.
all of these kinds of things, when the truth is that when we actually take a look at what love
That's right.
really
What
is,
does it actually mean?
yeah, what is actually what is love? Now, that does not discount from being attracted to the person. That doesn't discount from having that place where there's a connection
Yeah.
here, and we both experienced it. So let's take a look at and I think that's where maybe more guys could step up to the plate
Uh-huh.
to say, what are you doing next Friday night, or when can I see you again, or
Mhm.
something along those lines,
Yeah.
because there's more to explore here.
Yeah.
But I think that then we start putting up walls and we start maybe way over analyzing and all these other kinds of things, because we have been so conditioned in this society
That's right.
to believe that if there is not this instantaneous fireworks, lightning, etc., this moment,
Yeah.
that, oh, something must be wrong.
Right.
So we must not
That's
need
right.
to pursue this further. When in reality, And I do like that more people are beginning to talk about what they're terming a slow burn.
Okay.
So what does that mean?
Yeah.
What that means is that we're going to take the time to get to know each other.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you just unpacked someone's entire life on a first date that lasted for maybe, I mean, like if you're lucky, an hour.
Exactly.
Maybe 2 hours,
yeah.
right? Something like that.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to discover about that person.
Yeah.
And going back to that curated version of that person, that's what you got on that first date.
Yep.
You got what that person wanted you to see.
That's right.
Hopefully, maybe you were friends beforehand, but if you met on an app and you exchanged a few messages and we're in the talking phase first, because that's where this always starts, until someone budges and is like, hey, should we, let's meet up?
Yeah.
And so then you do and you meet up, but you were both so nervous on that first date. You were trying to impress the other person, and completely then if you walked away and maybe there weren't these sparks that were there, now we didn't even get an opportunity to really get to know each other.
That's right.
Let's go have a conversation. And so that's where I just want to push back on that and say, what if we were countercultural, right? So this culture that we're finding ourselves, what if we were countercultural to say, I'm going to push past what I'm overthinking here, and I want to go get to know you. So maybe let's have some real conversations, right? Like this next time, maybe let's really talk about what your family looks like. Let's talk about what my family looks like.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be brave enough to talk about our values.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the things that we agree with, we don't agree with, right? Like, let's be brave enough to have a disagreement about something and it be okay and you not take your toys and go home, right?
Yeah.
Because really, if we take a look at it, and this is going back to a biblical foundation, whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it is a relationship between two family members, two friends, two et cetera, if we take a look at 1 Corinthians 13. There's a lot of people that simply want to use this in a marriage context.
Right, but what is love? When you were saying this the other day, it was the first time, because of what we were talking about, it was the first time I heard it a little differently instead of just being in a marriage, like you're saying, in a marriage ceremony.
Yeah. So the truth is that if we take a look at what love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. It bears all things. It believes all things. It hopes all things. It endures all things. Love never fails. And if we begin to pull that apart, then let's start off with the fact that love is patient, right? So how many times have we, whether it's with a brother, sister, mom, dad, etc., or someone that you have a partner with, or maybe you've started dating and maybe there's something that annoys you.
Right.
What in that moment can you tell your flesh, I need to sit down and I need to take a minute. I need to be patient with this person. I need to give grace to this person. What does offering my heart even through this place look like? So am I going to be willing to be patient? Love walks in kindness, right? And so, and how many times do we get irritated about something with someone, even if it's a friend, and we resort to putting up walls with that person, and we choose our own flesh and what we feel justified by, instead of saying, I'm going to walk out kindness with this person. I'm going to walk out grace with this person. So love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not self-seeking, right? So love is going to put that person before yourself.
That's right. So all these things are an act, a continuous act, not a state of I'm in love.
That's right.
You know?
Yes.
That's what's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we have so many in society that don't understand. They get wrapped up in the neurological side because there's this effect of dopamine, serotonin, etc. You know, so if we people want to talk about love languages and things like that, and more times than not, you have a lot of guys that you hear that they're like, oh, my 2 love languages are quality time and physical touch. And, you know, which is great and fine. You have females that do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But what we're looking for here is an actual walking out of what love really is. Love is not just this dopamine rush. It's not just this serotonin that's coursing through.
That's right, because once that goes away, which it inevitably subsides, then you're like, oh, well, the love's gone.
The love's
If that's
gone.
how you're defining
And so
it,
then
right?
people fall out
Yeah.
of love.
Yeah.
Right? Or you
Yeah,
have
it's 'cause
this relationship where two people got into this place that had all of the sparks.
Right.
We had this thing. It was great. It was
Interesting.
awesome. It was
Yes.
intense. And then 2 months goes by, 3 months goes by, and there's a honeymoon period, right?
Mhm.
In any relationship.
Yeah.
And then you're out of the honeymoon relationship. Or say you've known that person for a really long time, okay? Like say you've been in a relationship with this person for, let's call it a year, 2 years, 3 years, etc. Maybe you met and married within a year, right?
Mhm.
And then you get to year 2, year 3, whatever that time period is, and life starts happening.
Yeah.
Life starts happening.
Yeah.
And the hard stuff starts taking place. Which is where and why being on the same page when it comes to values is so vitally important. Because chances are that if you're on that same page when it comes to values, you're going to have a lot of other places where you intersect with that person and you're on the same page.
Yes.
Or you're able to communicate through these things. But where then that all of those feelings of love go away, then what do you do next?
Yeah. So let me explain. So
Yeah.
I can kind of see myself in this in relationships that I've had because like take this relationship I was in a few years ago. Like we had this sort of nonverbal agreement on what we felt love was. And we were providing that for each other in this love bubble, let's say it is. And it was great. It was beautiful. And we were both getting what we needed. But then all of a sudden, like you said, life happens in that time period, the honeymoon phase starts to subside. Things start to change. And then what happens is I felt like what happened was my inner child or whatever was screaming, no, this isn't fair. You're not giving me what I want. This is what you used to give me. And she was saying the same thing, but we're not actually communicating it. It's actually coming out sideways. You know what I mean? And anger and disappointment and all kinds of stuff. And so I think that's a lot of people probably can relate to that is because that is kind of how I saw love was that feeling, you know? And so what do you think?
So communication is vitally important. And that's another place that, and we were talking about this the other day, like in a marriage, say, for example, there's a lot of different things that matter in a marriage, but there are a top 3 that for many couples are going to make it or break it. And that's communication, sex, and money.
That's right. Yeah.
And so communication then is one of those places that is really important. And so like talk about the dating category when we're getting to know each other. There's a lot of people, especially in that dating context, that I think shy away from the important conversations because they're afraid from the very beginning. If I say X, Y, and Z, I'm going to push you away and then my chances with this person are over.
Exactly.
And so, then you don't. And maybe you spend days or weeks on end having really more surface level conversations than anything. And you miss out because there will come a point when the real conversations will begin to take place.
Exactly.
Like I don't care who you are. I don't care what narrative it is that you're telling yourself. You want to be able to have these real conversations. And I think going back to that, love is not self-seeking, right? So if we have a disagreement about something and we're just not on the same page about it, there's a manner in which to communicate through it.
Right.
And I think, that's something that for various different people, the way that you were raised maybe might play a part in how you communicate.
That's right, yeah.
The safety in which you feel like you can communicate.
Ooh, that's really good.
Because for a female, safety is huge. Right?
So I can see where I kind of failed in that is, one of the ways I fail in communicating is if something, let's say an issue comes up and we haven't talked about it and it makes me feel a certain way and you feel a certain way, what I tend to do is I shut down. And then if you continue to force me to talk about it, then I get upset and then I get on defense and that makes you scared. It's like your safety goes away. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I can totally see that.
So if you are committed to each other and you're willing to have these hard conversations, I think there's a couple of different things that couples can do in order to communicate well. For me personally, one of the things that I've learned is that physical touch within a difficult conversation is very important. And so that would look like if we were sitting on the same couch, or obviously going to be close. It's maybe taking the hands of that other person and creating that physiological connection, being able to then make sure that the tone in which you're speaking to that person is respectful and loving. I think that it's then with that place, like if you have that physical connection and you're connecting in that moment to be able to say, I know that this is how you feel. Can we unpack this box together? And when you're willing to drop those defenses, which is something that you're going to have to do, you've got to drop the rock.
I know.
Someone has to drop the rock, right?
Yeah.
But when you're able to come together and to be able to acknowledge, okay, we have something that we're communicating through, and learn to listen to that other person's heart, and be able to tell yourself, I don't have all of the answers. You don't have all of the answers, but I'm committed to you and I want to figure this out, and I want to figure it out together. Is it going to be all solved in one conversation? Chances are no. Like you might encounter this same conversation a couple of different times. But again, when you are committed to that person and you're willing to say, I want to do this thing called life with you. That means that we're going to communicate through whatever that is together. Now, where I think counseling is a vital, important part of any relationship is that sometimes two people are at an impasse and are hopefully have the maturity to be able to say, we're having a difficult time getting through this. Let's bring in somebody who does this on a daily basis.
Right. A professional,
a licensed counselor, somebody, whether it's a, Christian counselor, whether it's an LPC or, what have you, be able to have two people go sit down with that counselor and then be able to have that person as that third party objective perspective to be able to say, here is what I hear you saying. And sometimes I think that's where two couples get into trouble, is because you're so caught up with what you're about to respond with or react with. You're about to react with. You stop listening. And I'm not talking just with your ears. You stop listening with your heart to hear. I want to hear you. I want to hear what you think. I want to hear how you feel. And that means that I'm going to sacrifice or lay down my right to be right. Because I'd heard a long time ago, if you are wrong in the way that you are right, you are still wrong, even if you're right.
If you are wrong, even in the way that you are right, you're still wrong, even if you're right.
Even if you're right.
Yeah. That's good.
And it's dropping the rock. And being willing to say, I love you. And love looks like this. Love is going to put your best interest before mine.
Yeah.
Because if I only seek to do life on my terms, I'm not really approaching you with love.
Yeah. So there's a couple, and everybody knows them, and they're into real estate, and they've been together forever. And I can't think of their names right now. You probably know what I'm talking about.
Is it the Healy's?
Yeah. It's the Healy's. It is. Yes, so I just met them recently.
Yes.
And I couldn't think of their names because I just met them, but I had the most fascinating conversation with them. He said, what's his name? What's
Matt?
Matt. Yeah,
I
Matt.
think his name is
That's
Matt
right,
also.
Yeah. He said he were talking. His wife was
Matt
there.
And Leslie.
Yes.
Yes.
And
I
he
love
said,
them.
you know why? Because I said we were talking about arguing or something with your spouse. And he said, you know why I don't like to be right? He said, it's because my wife then has to be wrong. And I don't like to see her lose. I don't like to see her sad. I don't want her to be wrong, I said, man, that's really sweet. Yeah. That was really cool. But so let me ask you this. So if I'm having an argument with somebody that I'm in a relationship with, and what I tend to do, it tends to rise to an emotional level where I feel like solution-based thinking goes out the window and it's just emotional, whatever. So what I do is I tend to shut down and I tend to leave the situation.
Okay.
And in my last relationship, this upset my partner because she wanted to resolve it right then and there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go away and come back and talk about it. And admittedly, it would take me kind of a long time sometimes to come back, which wasn't fair either.
Yeah.
But if that's the issue, let's say that one person is completely shutting down and stonewalling, then what do you think? What do you think is the best way to approach that? I mean, how do you get that person? Because there were times, like I can admit, there were times like even if I had cooled down and we both had, I was still just shut. I didn't want to talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just stubborn. Yeah.
I think in those instances, almost the only thing that you're left with is to give that person space.
Yeah.
I think the best thing you could possibly do if that's a situation is to understand sometimes we need some breathing room.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean, so say for example, if this is a marriage relationship, and I'm just going to go there, does that mean that one person leaves the house? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
no.
That's good.
In a dating context, if you are just dating and then that's the case, okay, let's take the evening. The bottom line is I'm going to communicate to you, like if we're in that relationship, I love you and I'm going to respect where you're at this moment.
That right there to me is so, because I've been with partners who've done both. I've been with partners who were really upset at me and really angry, and it made it worse for me. But then I was with somebody, like you said, that was like, okay, like I'm not happy about it, but I'm going to give you space. I love you. And like that made all the difference for me. No joke. It really did.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You said that.
Again, that's a place of love is not self-seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So just because this is what I want, or I want a resolve because it's going to make me feel better, does not mean that that's the solution in that moment.
That's good.
If what you need is space and you need to be able to go and breathe, to process, to pray, to think through various different aspects about whatever it is that there's a disagreement about. You need that opportunity to be able to just be. Now, the responsibility then that you have is to take that time that you have been given seriously.
That's right.
I would even strongly suggest, like, okay, 24 hours.
Yeah.
But past that.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, like, unless somehow this was like a end of the world, make it or break it, like this is like somehow there was something that huge where you needed several days. All right, take 24 hours. Take
that's fair.
Take half of a day, take an evening, take a whatever, take a break, breathe. Be sure to communicate with that person, even if it's through text message, to say, hey,
I just need some space.
I want you to know I care about you, or I love you, or whatever that communication place is.
I could be better about that.
That placeholder to say, you and I are going to talk about this, but I want you to know that I care about you. So that continual place of making sure that there's a connection there where that person understands that they are valuable. And it's not that it's necessarily your job to validate that. That's not what I'm saying, because that person has to own their own emotional space of validation. But I think if this is a committed relationship, and that's what I'm talking about, I think dating, I guess maybe we have some layers here. So dating is one realm, but we're talking about like in a relationship. I think communicating with that person, their value, that they have that place in your life. And then on purpose, setting a day, setting a time, setting a plan. There's a plan there. We're going to come back together. We're going to communicate through this. And even if we have to agree to disagree at the moment, here's where a biblical piece comes into play that I think that if we abided by it more often than not, we would do ourselves a whole lot of favors. And that's that there are going to be some places where only the Holy Spirit can speak to that person. There are going to be places that out of your relationship with God, only the Lord can show you what that answer is, or can soften your heart. And I think that's a place where then if we will get still before the Lord and to say, you know, if you're in disagreement, for example, with your partner, with that person you're in relationship with, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for that person I'm with, to be able to say, God, you're the only one that can speak to him about this, or I need you to speak to me. But either way, we need to hear from you in this place. And so again, I'm going to lay down my right to be right. I'm going to drop the rock, and God, I'm going to ask you to be God. in this place. And not that we didn't need you before, we always need you, but I need you to speak. I need you to be the one to create clarity here, because God is not the author of confusion. He's not. The enemy has come to kill, to steal, and to destroy. The enemy wants to tear apart relationships, wants to tear apart marriages. And if he can find rips in the fabric to be able to then spread, to pull that wide open, the enemy is going to do that. But I believe that in this place again, and this comes out of, not forcing anything down anyone's throat, but for me personally, having that relationship with God is going to change everything. And I had talked with you about too, just in my own failures. I am divorced, and there were things that I had to learn about, ways that I could have done things better. And communication for me, and I'm a communicative person, but there were areas that I had to learn. This is where I'm responsible for. And so I want to do better this next time. I want to learn more. I want to learn how to lean in. I want to learn how to listen. And I want to learn how to walk out what love really is in this place.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about sex. Okay, so
4 shades of red.
Yeah. So this is something a lot of people maybe are afraid to talk about, but we should talk about it in a healthy way, Yeah. And
especially in the church.
Yeah, right. And so what I thought was interesting was a situation that you were going through recently.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell part of it, and then I'll let you tell the rest of it. Yeah. So we were at the gym training, and you were telling me about this person that you were talking with. And you'd talked to him before in the past, kind of off and on, and y'all had started talking again, and you were pretty excited about it. And y'all had even set up a date, potentially, like to go on a date, to meet and go on a date.
Yeah.
And what I thought was really interesting about it is you said y'all would have conversations sometimes for like a couple hours, getting to know each other.
Yes.
But not just like random little small talk. Like y'all were talking about some real stuff. Yeah. And I was like, wow. I remember you telling me, we talked about, this and that and some really deep stuff. And I was like, man, that's really good.
Yeah.
And I remember you asked me, you're like, do you think that it was too much? And because I'll let you tell kind of where that led to, basically.
Yeah. So this was a place where I thought we were on the same page about a lot. And, you get to this spot where you actually, right, wrong, or indifferent, you start thinking, okay, there actually could possibly be a future here. And then, so with that, with every conversation, with every interaction, with every date that you go on with this person, and the amount of time that you spend together, there becomes a comfort level that you have with that person.
Yeah.
And like we established already, for women, security and trust are huge.
Yeah.
Like I've said before in our conversations, for a woman, and I feel like I speak for many, many women when I say, you have to win my heart before you win anything else.
Right.
And now, granted, from a place of having a relationship with God, if we're talking about sex, if we're talking about how far is too far, if we're talking about where boundaries need to be set and these kinds of things, you can think that you have those places that have been established with that person until you get to a moment where then those boundaries are now being challenged. And so this became one of those moments where we were together, it was on a date, and, just being completely honest, he had kissed me, and it was just a very sweet moment.
Yeah.
Until then there was a place, and I prepped my parents before this conversation to say, I'm going to talk about something a little bit hard.
Yeah.
But where then there was pressure to go further.
Yeah. And a lot of women experience that all the time. Yeah.
Yes. And but when I held to my boundary and I held to what I believe is honorable for my life before the Lord, and I held to that, he didn't like that. And suddenly, all of the conversations that we had about anything that mattered, anything of value, it was like it went out the window.
Exactly.
And I was so grateful I was able to talk with you about this, because it like really hurt.
Yeah.
It hurt my feelings. It hurt my heart. Because for me, what happened from there was a rejection.
Yeah.
And he basically, I mean, I don't know how else to communicate this, but like threw a fit.
Yeah, like a child.
Threw a fit like a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And this is somebody who's even age-wise older than I am.
It's ridiculous.
And so I kind of thought, we were going to be beyond that, at this stage in life, and that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so then what happened from there was ghosting and just not answering messages, not answering phone calls, not answering anything else. It was this complete and utter shutdown.
Yeah.
Despite the desire to like, hey, can we talk about this? Can we
You're in
talk
your
through
40s.
this?
You're in your late 40s, this person, like close to 50 even. Like, how are you ghosting someone?
Talk through this. Yeah.
Like normal adults.
Yes. And
God.
so, but what I took away from that, and there's a normal processing mentally and emotionally through all of this, was that because I even in my own, as you're thinking about things, as you're feeling it, like I started to question myself
and started way?
Just in this place. And I think I remember sharing it with you too. Like somehow I felt like I had done something wrong.
Yeah.
Or that I needed to
so
like,
crazy,
maybe I'm a, for lack of a better word, like maybe I'm a prude.
Right,
maybe like, I don't, okay, maybe my standards are too high. Maybe I, I'm 40, we are at this place in life that we are. Maybe I should have this, maybe I should have that. And then in just some quiet time with the Lord, actually what I felt like the Holy Spirit shared with me was,
y'all were just not equally yoked.
We were not,
no.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
different
Jenna,
places.
Is that the kind of man
that's right
you want leading you?
That's good. No way, right?
If that's the response that I get from you in this
like
moment
a child,
in time.
like you can't have a physical thing right then and there, and you can't wait for,
can't wait. Yes.
That's sad to me. It really
because
is.
Like for me, the standard in my life is that is an area that I want to give to my husband.
Yeah, absolutely.
And biblically it lines up as well. And in fact, I went and found the scripture, and my go-to, of course, is getting into the word to say, God, what do you have to say about this?
Yeah.
Because I want my life, I want my relationships, I want it to honor you.
Yes. Yeah. Wow.
Because what happens then whenever I have these conversations with my daughter?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when I have these conversations with my son? What happens whenever I have another young woman that comes to me that has maybe a place of brokenness, and we're talking through this? What happens in those conversations? What do I share at that moment if I'm not willing to walk this out in my own life?
That's exactly right.
That's a double standard.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so
many young women feel that. You know what I mean? They feel so pressured, because I've been there. Like I've been, in my 20s and dating, and there's the girl that always wants to hold out. Well, no one's going to date you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they have this enormous, like they feel like you're saying, like I'm just a prude, and I'm just, because no one is willing to rise up and be like, I dated a girl like that in high school.
Yeah.
And everyone made fun of me. They're like, oh, you're never going to get any. I can't believe, and she was beautiful and the sweetest girl. And we dated for like 2 years.
Yeah.
But that's a thing, and I mean, how do you, what do you tell a young woman like that that's like wants to give into that, because they're trying to live for the Lord and they're trying to have these standards, but at the same time, they can't keep their boyfriend if they don't give it up, or do something. What do you say to those women?
Yeah. So if you are a young woman that is holding to these standards in your life, that this is a desire of your heart, first of all, I'm going to tell you, I am so proud of you.
Right. Yeah.
I am so beyond proud of you. And I'm going to continue to encourage you to hold the line, sweetheart.
Right.
Hold the line.
Yeah.
My sweet friend, hold the line.
You'll never regret it.
Because you're not going to regret it. Because here's the deal, is that in a context of a boyfriend, girlfriend, and again, this is a no judgment zone, right? No judgment at all.
Yeah.
You have to live your life, and your life before the Lord is your life before the Lord. So let me say that, up front.
Yeah.
But if you're asking me for advice and for counsel in this place, I'm going to say, if it is within your heart that this is something that you want to give as a gift to your husband, which that's exactly what I believe that this is, that sex was created for a husband and for a wife. This is a bonding experience between a husband and a wife. That's how God created it. And it is beautiful, and it is celebrated. And in marriage, it is holy even. Let's go ahead and use that word.
Nice. Yeah.
if this is a place where, and maybe we've all made mistakes in life, right?
Yeah.
We've all gone too far. And I get the question
For
from
sure.
young women too, who I think sometimes are trying to sort through mind, will, and emotions. And so the question that I'll get is, how far is too far?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah. How do you respond to that?
That this is a heart issue.
Okay.
This is a place in the heart,
Right.
right? If we're asking the question, how far is too far, then really what we're trying to do is to justify the desire that we have and make ourselves feel better
That's
if
true.
we can get all the way to skirt that line,
Right.
but maybe not go over it
Yeah.
and yet have this appeasement
Yeah, exactly.
of our conscience.
That's exactly what it is. If we're being real. Yeah. You know?
But the truth
Yeah.
is, and I'm going to go back to, if you have a relationship with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And you've said, God, I want your best.
Yeah.
I want your best.
Wow.
Then the question I'm going to have to ask her, and I have asked of young women too. Okay, so I want you, let's stop the conversation. I want you to answer for me.
Mm-hmm.
If God was sitting right here with us, if Jesus was right here with us in this conversation, I want you to tell me, what's he going to tell you about what his best is?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Dang.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about what God's best in your life is.
Yeah.
Because if his best for you is this young man who's going to create an issue, or vice versa,
Mm-hmm.
guy or girl,
Right, yeah.
whoever had the
Exactly,
issue with
yeah.
the fact that the desire that's there wasn't met, etc. Let's ask that question, right? Okay, so is that the best you can do then?
Mm-hmm.
And is this a
Yeah.
value statement that you've told yourself, this is all that I deserve?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
I'm going to look at you and tell you no.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell her, sweet girl, you deserve so much more than that. And God has so much more for you.
Yeah.
And I want to champion you in that place then.
Mm-hmm.
That if this is a desire of your heart, that you want to walk out purity in this place, then I want you to know that you have many other women around
That's
you,
right,
myself
yeah.
included,
Yeah.
who are going to stand with you, who you have the permission to be honest with.
Yeah.
Sometimes we feel like there's especially in this subject where we have to, again, put on this mask or carefully curate what somebody else sees about our
Yep.
lives. And so it gets honesty then in this arena, it gets difficult, right?
Yes. Yeah. So what if you're talking to a young woman about that, and she's like, I really want to do that, but I just, I feel like as soon as I say that, every guy's gonna run, because, and I'm seeing it from that perspective, like, when you're dating in, let's say, your 20s, guys, that's what they're wanting. They're wanting other things too.
Yeah.
But they're wanting that
motivator.
so bad. Like it's one
Yeah.
of the, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so it's
I
like,
do.
it's gotta
this is
be
real life.
Yeah. It's so hard, And I think and I asked you this because I talked to Trey Holmes about this.
Yeah.
And the question was that, you start trying to live for God and try to live your life according to his will and
Yeah.
try to do things. Okay, I'm trying to do what you want me to do, Lord, because I know
Yeah.
you have something better for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then you have these conflicting times where, you're trying to live right for God, but then you have these habits and then sins that you're not ready to let go of.
Yeah.
And so then
Yeah.
I asked him, remember I told you about this, I said,
Yeah.
where's the point to where there's like an intrinsic switch or like something happens to where
Mm.
you're like, okay, I'm ready to let that go. And
Yeah.
I'm ready to take what you have that's better for me, God.
Yeah.
Because I struggle. I mean, everybody does. Like
Yes.
I'm not ready to let.
Well,
I'm
we've talked about
compromising on.
this.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
And so I guess that's where I could see like a young woman struggling is
Yeah.
there are certain areas in your life that you compromise on, and you're like, well, God, I'm just not ready to do that yet. So, and I know it's a process.
Yeah.
But so what does, let's say, a young woman do if she's feeling that way? Like, okay, I'm going to compromise in this area, but I'll do everything else right,
Yeah. Oh, man. So again, number one, let me say, okay, the Holy Spirit is a gentleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't count the number of times where in my own life where there was a struggle, whether it's this or whether it's another temptation or whether it's something else.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with it.
Yeah. So what do you do? Yeah.
It's that place of relationship
Okay.
with the Lord. And I'm so grateful that the Holy Spirit is a gentleman. And I because I have experienced this in my own life over and over again, where there will be those times and those moments where I can hear, and he's gentle. He's gentle. And we expect fire and brimstone to come down from heaven if we know that we have sin in our lives. It's why there are people who won't darken the doors of a church, because they know the sin in their lives. When if they could just know our Jesus, to know that God loves you and he's going to do this thing with you. While we were yet still sinners, Christ died for us. And so if there's a struggle that's in your life and something that you're having to crucify, and maybe you find yourself caught in over and over again, I'm going to encourage you, run to your Father. Maybe it's a moment where you had that sin happen and occur in your life. I am encouraging you to run to your Father. Run right back into his arms. Admit that. God, I'm sorry. I did this particular thing, and I'm asking for your help, and I'm asking for you to take my hand and help me not to do that thing again. Secondary to allowing the Holy Spirit to work with you, to know God loves you and is going to walk you through, because God doesn't want that for your life either, right? Secondary to that, I am going to encourage, whether it's myself or not, you don't have to come to me, but like find somebody that you can be vulnerable with, that you can have maybe as a mentor.
That's right.
We need somebody. The Bible talks about confessing our sins to each other. And this is where in that place of honesty, it can get really hard, because then you're afraid of being judged, or maybe it's shame that you're holding within yourself, and you're saying, how do I even say these words out of my mouth right now without there being judgment, without there being, I'm going to be viewed this way, I'm going to be viewed that way. And so we withhold that, right?
For sure.
We withhold that. And instead, we're encouraged in the word to confess our sins one to another and to be restored. So I think one of the most beautiful stories that I can think of in the word is the woman at the well.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
The woman at the well who Jesus is talking
woman.
to.
Yeah.
And Jesus, he addresses the place. And in the word, what we see, and I read this with gentleness. He addresses the places that she has had lived life. And then he tells her, go and sin no more. And she's restored. And there's this like moment of celebration, and she runs into this city, right? And then I think about the woman who is thrown before Jesus, who was caught in adultery, right? And she's at the feet of Jesus, and he bends down with her, and he writes in the sand, and we'll never know what it is that he wrote in the sand. But what we know is that he looked at the Pharisees and the Sadducees that were around, and he told them, you who are without sin, cast the first stone.
That's right.
And they dropped the rock.
And
they had to turn and they had to walk. Why? Because we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. What God wants for us is relationship with him. And when we spend time with the Lord day in and day out, I don't always get time to read. I don't get time to read in the Bible. I don't get quiet time, especially as a mom. I don't get time every day to spend in the word. But what I do know, and going back to that place that you were talking to Trey about, is it's this almost like this sanctification, if you will. It's the only word I can come up with. But it's this place where, as I'm continuing to spend time with you, Lord, and I'm continuing every single day to say, I'm asking you to help me. I'm struggling in these particular areas. And I give you permission. It's this hand out. I give you permission to change me from the inside out. I want to know you better, and I want to trust you more. And as we continue to spend time with the Lord, there is this place where then if we can say, not my will, but yours be done. And I'm asking you to change me. Even if it's a prayer that you pray about 1,000,000 times a day, I'm asking you to change me from the inside out. It's relationship with him.
I think it's, kind of like you're saying, and what Trey told me too, is that it's a process.
It's a process.
And you have to give it to God, and literally give it all to God, and be at a place where you're like, I'm ready to give this to you, and trust that he will do that,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I can see areas in my life that I'm withholding. I'm not ready for whatever reason, but I'm making progress in those areas.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So what about, lastly, we said the top three were communication, sex, and finances.
Yeah.
So when it comes to finances, I had a guest in here recently, and he's been married for 20 years or something. And he said
awesome.
he and his wife have separate bank accounts. And he said, that's just how we do it. And if I take her to eat, I'm treating her, and vice versa. And we pay our into the bills. And so what are your thoughts on that when it comes to dating? And if you get in a serious relationship and even marriage, do you think people would be better off splitting finances, or what's the best way? And I guess the other part of the question is, why do people fight about finances, do you think?
Oh, wow. That's an onion, Matt.
I know, it's a lot.
Whole onion. Okay, so let's talk. We'll split this into three. So dating. In dating, so I'm a little bit traditional in that I think, like, if we're talking about first date, second dates, and I don't know how many, like, don't put a number on it,
Yeah.
but dates in general. I think that the guy, being a gentleman, I think it's a best case scenario for him to cover that.
For sure. Yeah.
In partnership,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with a girl. So I always offer. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's the first date.
Do
I
you
don't
really?
care. Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
interesting.
I've
Yeah.
offered.
Yeah.
Granted, we also live in a society where that's sometimes that's been an expectation
Mm-hmm.
here and there, where a guy has asked the girl to split the
Yeah.
bill with him. And I'm not telling you how to walk that road.
Right.
Like, I mean, you do you.
Yeah. That's
But,
kind of bad on the first date. The first few dates, you should be covering the bill as a guy, I feel like.
I think so. I
Yes.
think so.
I do too. Yeah.
I think in partnership,
Mhm.
so like
That's different,
if
yeah.
we're in a relationship,
Yeah.
I think the female may be offering to, because you want to show love maybe
Yeah.
in that way, or maybe your love language is acts of
Right,
service
yeah.
or
Mhm.
gifts, etc. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with loving that person in that way
Yeah.
and being able to show appreciation.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And it again comes down to a heart, like, this is a heart position thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully two people are communicating through that and what that looks like.
Yeah.
In marriage, now granted, I'm like getting there. Do I have to answer that?
I know.
So I'll just speak personally then.
Yeah, just from your perspective, Yeah.
Someday I look forward to sharing a bank account together.
Right? Yeah.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
I look forward to communicating through money. I
Mhm.
look forward to communicating through our budget, through our savings, through planning our future together.
Yes.
Like, I look
That's
forward
cool.
to being able to do that together.
Yeah.
And granted, I know couples personally who have two separate bank
Yeah.
accounts, and they make it work for them. And okay, again, you do, like, if
Right.
that's what the both of you have agreed upon, like, who am I to sit here and tell you how
Exactly.
you need to run your
Yeah.
finances? I don't pay your bills.
Yeah.
But I know for me personally, I look forward to that day where we are sharing life
Mhm.
together. And granted, I have my own job, and I'm pretty self-sufficient.
Yep.
But I look forward to that day because
that's cool.
I think that there's also something to be said about being, how do I put this? Having your husband, for me, my husband will be the head
Mhm.
of our household.
Right. Mhm.
And I, as his wife, I look forward to, I'm about to use the word submission, but I look forward to being the helpmate.
Yeah.
I look
There's
forward.
nothing wrong
There's
with
nothing
that.
wung with that. No,
I'm
there's
so
not.
glad you're saying that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Because we live in a
Gosh,
society
yeah.
that is not on board
I
with
know.
that
Oh yeah.
anymore.
Oh yeah.
And there is like nothing
It's
more.
refreshing, honestly.
Oh,
It really is. A lot of people will find that refreshing, I think.
I pray so.
Oh,
I
yeah.
hope so. Because that's become such a divisive
Oh yeah.
subject
That's right.
anymore.
Yeah.
This, even this subject of submission in a
Mhm.
marriage.
Yeah.
And but I believe that as a husband looks to God first, and we talked about this the other day, as
That was
he
good.
looks,
Talk about that real quick.
okay, so as a
Yeah.
husband looks to God and has this vertical relationship
Uh-huh.
with him, and he is seeking God for
Yes.
his life, when he is seeking God, he's going to know how to love her.
That's right.
And when she is seeking God, she's going to know how to love him.
Yep.
And I believe that in this place of how God has this set up, that the husband is the head of the household. He wears the mantle on his shoulders.
Yeah.
I, as the wife, am called to be his rib, to be his helpmate,
Right.
to love. I've heard it said several times that a husband is the protector and is that head place. A woman multiplies, and it's this beautiful picture of this relationship of two people together again. And so even in finances, and granted, two people have to have those conversations together.
Yeah. What if you make a lot more than your husband, but he's still the head of the household, right? In your mindset, right? How does that work though? Like if you're bringing home the bacon, but he's the head of the household, is he controlling your money, the money, or is that a conversation you would have? But
I think it's a conversation, and again,
but you'd be okay with it if y'all decided on that, even though you're making the money.
I mean, so in a hypothetical situation here, we would communicate through that,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And have, again, it's this meeting of the hearts.
Yeah.
And if I really am going to walk out that love is not self-seeking, that love is going to put my husband before myself, we're going to let's have that conversation.
Yeah.
That's going to be, I mean, it may or may not be a hard conversation,
right.
but like whatever the context of this conversation is, you're going to have two people who are going to come to terms together
That's
on
right.
what this looks like for their marriage. And it's just a place of communication. Now, is there a possibility, and I'm saying this, and there's others probably listening to this right now, and if you were in this situation, I'm just going to go back to, I really believe it's communication.
Yeah.
That communication and finance is communication about sex, communication about all three.
Yep.
But in this particular place, you're going to have to decide what works best for your marriage, for your life. If you're on the same page, it's going to work out a lot better.
Yeah.
If you're not on the same page, keep working through it, keep praying through it, and be open to even just hearing, what God has to say for your marriage, for your life, and for your relationship.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, and you asked me another component of that, but I don't remember what it was.
I don't either. That's
okay.
Yeah, that was fantastic, to be honest. So tell us though, real quick, what are 3 things that you're genuinely grateful for right now in your life?
Oh man, there is so much to be grateful for. First and foremost, I can honestly tell you, I'm grateful for West Texas. I am grateful for San Angelo.
Yeah.
And for the community that just so surrounded my kids and I.
Yeah.
And has just been just so amazing.
Yeah. I love that.
We live in a great place, don't we?
We do.
We really do.
Yes, we do.
Secondary, I am so very grateful for my children.
Nice.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
Like arrows in a quiver. Children are a blessing from the Lord.
Yeah.
And so I'm grateful for them. I'm so proud of them. I'm so proud of my daughter. I'm proud of my son.
Yeah.
I love that I get to wear this title of mom.
Yeah.
And that is both a challenge and a blessing. I want to be the best me I can for them.
Yeah.
And then third thing, I'm grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for them. I have a big family and they are amazing. They are so supportive. And so, so those would probably be my top 3.
Those are good things.
Yeah.
And then lastly, what's something that genuinely makes you happy? What fulfills you?
Oh man.
I know one of them, just seeing you is when you're in the gym and I'm just kidding. When you're on stage and you're worshiping, you know?
Yeah.
You can tell. And you told me, we don't have to get into all of it, but something you told me about that was that you were explaining it, that although you're in front of all these people and one of your jobs is to help other people get into the worship as well, it's not a performance.
Yeah.
You're literally worshiping, but you happen to be, right? How did you explain it real quick?
That worship as this place is our relationship with God and my having the opportunity to tell him, God, you are worthy.
Yeah.
You are worthy. This is it. It's not just worship, it's worthship. I'm having this opportunity to pour out my praise upon you. I love to sing. I love music. And having an opportunity, in a way I cannot explain. I know that I was born for this. I was born to worship my Father God. He is my friend, and having a chance to pour this out on him. And I don't know how, I have some mind pictures in the moment, but like I think about the woman in the Bible who poured out her expensive oil at Jesus's feet.
Yes. Oh, the alabaster oil.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And so I think about that in worship, that it's pouring this out before the Lord. And so as having an opportunity to help lead worship, it's not a performance. It can't be a performance. If it's about me, why in the world am I up there?
Yeah.
You know, lay down the microphone. God doesn't need our instruments. He doesn't need our microphones. He doesn't need any of it. He wants our heart. He wants our heart.
That's good. Yeah.
And so I want to pour that out before him. And so, that is something that genuinely makes me happy. You can ask my kids. I have worship music on in the house like all the time. When I'm cooking dinner, you'll hear like from the top of my lungs. And sometimes I hear, Mom.
Really?
But
I love that. Yeah.
And so
I would never get tired of that. I love that. That's cool. And your voice is so beautiful.
You are so sweet.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's something, that having this opportunity to just pour out worship upon my Savior, upon my Father God, because he meets me there. He meets us there. You know, the Bible also talks about that God inhabits the praises of his people.
Nice.
Zephaniah 3:17 tells us he has a voice and he sings over us as well.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I've never heard that.
Zephaniah 3:17. Yeah.
That's good.
God has a voice and he sings.
Yeah.
And so it's just, but what better opportunity than to take this life that he's given us and pour it right back out before him.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, this was amazing.
It's been great. Yeah.
That's been Jenna Jones, guys, and this was the Matt Cottrell Report. Thank you for joining us, as always. I just want to mention real quick, we are taking sponsors. If you're interested in supporting the Matt Cottrell Report podcast or any of the stuff we do, please let us know. Take care.